and gentlemen, please welcome Senior Vice President, National Director, Multimedia Sales and Sponsorship for Black Enterprise, Kyle Allman.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. You guys look very nice today. Just wanted to get us started. We'll get started with an invocation. And let me bring up the interim Division Vice President for HR for Major Accounts, ADP, Ms. Aisha Thomas Petit.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies. If everyone could just be still, and if you so choose, close your eyes. We're going to say a prayer over the food. Thank you, God. Thank you, Father God, for your goodness and your mercy, Lord. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this amazing event that has allowed us the time, place, and space to focus on us. Lord, and before we ask for anything, we just want to say thank you. Lord, as we prepare to receive the food, I ask that you bless it. May it be to the nourishment of our minds, our bodies, and spirits. And Lord, I also ask that when we walk away from this magnificent event, that we take with us the blessings that you have bestowed upon us. Take these blessings to our families, to our friends, to our communities, Lord, and help us to know that the power is within us, and through you, we can do all things. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Brian Rexroad's real name is Carl, named after his grandfather.
For the time we did spend together, you know, if he was fixing something, I always really enjoy watching it, even just as a small child, and as I got older, I was sometimes helping him with some things. So he would have projects ready to go when we did come and visit.
And so Brian was thrilled to follow in his grandfather's footsteps to a career at AT&T.
My grandfather was Carl Rumpel. He was my mother's father. He worked for AT&T Bell Labs somewhere around 1929 to 1966, so upwards around 35 years. And he was an electrical engineer, focused mostly on developing time references and a variety of different systems or tools.
What Brian didn't know was that his grandfather had a secret use for those time references, a secret that helped to change the world.
He also worked on a project that was a voice encryption system called Sig Sally, one of the first, if not the first, voice encryption system that was used by Churchill and Roosevelt to communicate during the World War II effort.
Yes, the man Brian called Gramp was instrumental in communication between Winston Churchill and President Franklin Roosevelt as they worked to defeat Nazi Germany. With stations set up in Washington, London, and Northern Africa, Sig Sally allowed phone conversations without anyone unwanted listening in.
I suspect that his role in that was actually one of the really important aspects, which is if you have an encryption system, you have to have the key material on the two ends be exactly the same at the same time. And to have a very good time reference for that would be very important.
Brian made this discovery when he found an old journal where his grandfather referred to a mysterious Project X, something Carl wasn't allowed to talk much about. It wasn't until 30 years after the war that the project was declassified and the name Sig Sally became known to the world.
It's a privilege to be a part of the legacy. This company's been around for a very long time. It's made a huge amount of contributions in the area of technology. We're actually speeding up or reviving our contribution in technology, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
He's more than a part of it. In an amazing coincidence, Brian has spent his entire career working in information security, starting with the federal government and now with AT&T for over 20 years. Just like Carl, Brian is doing his part in a different kind of war, 70 years later, but a war AT&T fights every day.
We are managing the huge amounts of data that are necessary to operate the company, managing the huge amounts of data that our customers are depending on us to deliver to the network. So security is really an important piece of this. Protecting the privacy of our customers is an important piece of this. The tendency today, and we call it threat analytics, is to tend to be looking for the threats. Well, by the time the threat has attacked, it's a little bit late. You really want to be doing something to protect before the threat comes.
And now, armed with the information that his grandfather was not only a pioneer, but a patriot, Brian couldn't be prouder, and he hopes the feeling would be mutual.
When I reflect back on my grandfather, I mostly tend to think about how he would reflect on me. That is, have I really sort of fulfilled his expectations? And not that he ever placed any specific expectations, but I think my contributions, the things that I have been doing as a part of AT&T, as a part of helping to protect information, as a part of just working in the technology field, I think he would be, at the very least, satisfied. And I hope he'd be proud of me for that.
Brian Rexroad's real name is Carl, named after his grandfather.
For the time we did spend together, if he was fixing something, I always really enjoy watching it, even just as a small child, and as I got older, I was sometimes helping him with some things. So he would have projects ready to go when we did come and visit.
And so Brian was thrilled to follow in his grandfather's footsteps to a career at AT&T.
My grandfather was Carl Rumpel. He was my mother's father. He worked for AT&T Bell Labs somewhere around 1929 to 1966, so upwards around 35 years. And he was an electrical engineer, focused mostly on developing time references and a variety of different systems or tools.
What Brian didn't know was that his grandfather had a secret use for those time references, a secret that helped to change the world.
He also worked on a project that was a voice encryption system called Sig Sally, one of the first, if not the first, voice encryption system that was used by Churchill and Roosevelt to communicate during the World War II effort.
Yes, the man Brian called Gramp was instrumental in communication between Winston Churchill and President Franklin Roosevelt as they worked to defeat Nazi Germany. With stations set up in Washington, London, and Northern Africa, Sig Sally allowed phone conversations without anyone unwanted listening in.
I suspect that his role in that was actually one of the really important aspects, which is if you have an encryption system, you have to have the key material on the two ends be exactly the same at the same time. And to have a very good time reference for that would be very important.
Brian made this discovery when he found an old journal where his grandfather referred to a mysterious Project X, something Carl wasn't allowed to talk much about. It wasn't until 30 years after the war that the project was declassified and the name Sig Sally became known to the world.
It's a privilege to be a part of the legacy. This company's been around for a very long time. It's made a huge amount of contributions in the area of technology. We're actually speeding up or reviving our contribution in technology, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
He's more than a part of it. In an amazing coincidence, Brian has spent his entire career working in information security, starting with the federal government and now with AT&T for over 20 years. Just like Carl, Brian is doing his part in a different kind of war, 70 years later, but a war AT&T fights every day.
We are managing the huge amounts of data that are necessary to operate the company, managing the huge amounts of data that our customers are depending on us to deliver to the network. So security is really an important piece of this. Protecting the privacy of our customers is an important piece of this. The tendency today, and we call it threat analytics, is to tend to be looking for the threats. Well, by the time the threat has attacked, it's a little bit late. You really want to be doing something to protect before the threat comes.
And now, armed with the information that his grandfather was not only a pioneer, but a patriot, Brian couldn't be prouder, and he hopes the feeling would be mutual.
When I reflect back on my grandfather, I mostly tend to think about how he would reflect on me. That is, have I really sort of fulfilled his expectations? And not that he ever placed any specific expectations, but I think my contributions, the things that I have been doing as a part of AT&T, as a part of helping to protect information, as a part of just working in the technology field, I think he would be, at the very least, satisfied, and I hope he'd be proud of me for that.
Brian Rexroad's real name is Carl, named after his grandfather.
For the time we did spend together, you know, if he was fixing something, I always really enjoy watching it, even just as a small child, and as I got older, I was sometimes helping him with some things. So he would have projects ready to go when we did come and visit.
And so Brian was thrilled to follow in his grandfather's footsteps to a career at AT&T.
My grandfather was Carl Rumpel. He was my mother's father. He worked for AT&T Bell Labs somewhere around 1929 to 1966, so upwards around 35 years. And he was an electrical engineer, focused mostly on developing time references and a variety of different systems or tools.
What Brian didn't know was that his grandfather had a secret use for those time references, a secret that helped to change the world.
He also worked on a project that was a voice encryption system called Sig Sally, one of the first, if not the first, voice encryption system that was used by Churchill and Roosevelt to communicate during the World War II effort.
Yes, the man Brian called Gramp was instrumental in communication between Winston Churchill and President Franklin Roosevelt as they worked to defeat Nazi Germany. With stations set up in Washington, London, and Northern Africa, Sig Sally allowed phone conversations without anyone unwanted listening in.
I suspect that his role in that was actually one of the really important aspects, which is if you have an encryption system, you have to have the key material on the two ends be exactly the same at the same time. And to have a very good time reference for that would be very important.
Brian made this discovery when he found an old journal where his grandfather referred to a mysterious Project X, something Carl wasn't allowed to talk much about. It wasn't until 30 years after the war that the project was declassified and the name Sig Sally became known to the world.
It's a privilege to be a part of the legacy. You know, this company's been around for a very long time. It's made a huge amount of contributions in the area of technology. We're actually speeding up or reviving our contribution in technology, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
He's more than a part of it. In an amazing coincidence, Brian has spent his entire career working in information security, starting with the federal government and now with AT&T for over 20 years. Just like Carl, Brian is doing his part in a different kind of war, 70 years later, but a war AT&T fights every day.
We are managing the huge amounts of data that are necessary to operate the company, managing the huge amounts of data that our customers are depending on us.
Good afternoon, everyone. Our featured guest for this afternoon's Conversations That Count is undoubtedly one of the most powerful women in the world, Ambassador Susan E. Rice. Former National Security Advisor and the U.S. Permanent Representative to the United Nations for President Barack Obama. In her role as National Security Advisor from July 1, 2013 to January 20, 2017, Ambassador Rice led the National Security Council staff of approximately 400 defense, diplomatic, intelligence, and development experts. She chaired the Cabinet-level National Security Principles Committee, provided the President's daily national security briefings, and was responsible for coordinating the formulation and implementation of all aspects of the administration's foreign and national security policy, including all diplomatic, intelligence, homeland security, and military efforts. As U.S. Permanent Representative to the United Nations and a member of the President Obama's cabinet from 2009 to 2013, she worked to advance U.S. interests, defend universal values, strengthen the world's security and prosperity, and promote respect for human rights. In a world of 21st century threats that pay no heed to borders, Ambassador Rice helped rebuild an effective basis for international cooperation that strengthened the United States' ability to achieve its foreign policy objectives and made the American public safer. Ambassador Rice is currently a distinguished visiting research fellow at the School of International Service, American University, and a non-resident senior fellow at the Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce Ambassador Susan E. Rice, accompanied by today's interviewer, attorney, advocate, and president of the Professional Diversity Network, Inc., Ms. Star Jones. Let's welcome Star and Susan.
Hello, ladies. Welcome, Hi. Ambassador Rice. Talk about bringing home the bacon and frying it up in a pan. I mean, Butch touched on it just a little bit, your amazing career. Will you please share with the ladies your career journey, a bit of it?
Oh, my goodness. Well,
I know we could be here all day.
First of all, Star, thank you so much for doing this. And it's wonderful to be here with all of you. I hope you all are having a great time. I just arrived, so I intend to join you in having a great time for the rest of the day. Star, I was born in Washington, D.C. in 1964. So in the middle of the Civil Rights Movement, in the middle of Vietnam in my early years, to parents who were very much involved in policy issues. My mother was very much committed to education policy and equal opportunity. She was a leader in the establishment of the Pell Grant program so that millions of Americans have been able to finance their higher education. My dad was an economist and a banker, and he ultimately was a governor of the Federal Reserve System. And so I grew up in a household where the business of Washington was the business of our family. And even though my parents divorced when I was about 10, my early childhood had me very much steeped in issues of policy. So my mother literally made me sit in front of the television set with her and watch as Robert Kennedy's body was brought by train across the country after his assassination. And when D.C. burned down in 1968, after Martin Luther King was assassinated, my parents took me and my brother, who was then in a stroller, down to see what had happened to our city, and to then visit Resurrection City, which some of you will remember was where the Poor People's Campaign was camped out on the mall. And so I just grew up in an environment, went to school with kids whose parents were in government, and so I knew from an early age that I cared about policy, and I wanted to be part of making a difference in trying to improve our country and the lives of our people and people more broadly. And that's how I was raised. But I didn't know for many years, what form that would take. When I was a teenager, I thought, maybe I want to grow up and be a United States Senator. But I was from Washington, D.C., and unfortunately, even today, we have no voting rights. And I outgrew, by the time I was in my 20s, the idea that I wanted to be an elected official. I figured I didn't really have the patience to be begging for money and scraping and scrapping and compromising on the things that I believed in. But I knew I wanted to be involved in policy, and for a period of time, I thought that might be domestic policy. I thought I might go to law school and be a civil rights advocate or some other kind of policy advocate on behalf of people that I cared about. But then when I was in graduate school, I went to England and studied at Oxford, and I studied international relations. And I got excited about it, and I got to travel in Africa and China and the Soviet Union at the time, and Europe. And it was in that period that I got really interested in international affairs. And I ultimately made the choice to go into international affairs when President Clinton was elected. And I had worked 4 years before on the failed Democratic presidential campaign. You all may remember Michael Dukakis and Lloyd Bentsen, that one. And I was a junior foreign policy staffer then, but when President Clinton came in, I got two different offers as a young 28-year-old. One to work on National Economic Policy staff, and the other to work on the National Security Council staff. And I chose National Security Council staff, and one thing led to another, and so we're having this conversation.
And that was a pivotal choice, if you think
It was a pivotal choice. And I figured, I really wasn't thinking at the time that it was, you know, a permanent choice. To be honest, I was interested in both sides, and I thought that, I have no idea if this was correct, but I thought that it would be easier to make the transition from national economic policy to foreign policy or national security than the other way around. So if I got to national security policy first, you know, I would be able to go back if I chose to more easily than the other way around.
When we were chatting earlier, I said, so Ambassador, how long have you been involved in politics? You said, nah, Star, policy. There's a big difference when it comes to politics and policy, and you made a conscious choice.
I chose not to run for any office. It's been my plan to date. And
You're thinking about it?
I still live in Washington, D.C.
There are other things. Some might say 45 men is enough.
Well, 45 men is definitely enough. That we can agree on. Especially the 45th.
I know.
Oh my God. But anyway, the distinction between policy and politics is one that I like to insist on, because even though I came to policy as a political appointee at every stage of my career, I really do believe that, you know, the work that I have done and the work that somebody in my shoes is supposed to do is meant to be for the larger policy objective, not to advance a political objective, at least in the realm of national security. So I feel strongly about that.
And Ambassador, we have heard of all the amazing highs in your career. Everything that's started from college to being a Rhodes Scholar, studying at Oxford, the positions that you've held in our government, leading thousands of people in policy choices. Incredible highs and some lows. Mm-hmm. How did you navigate between the two?
Well, again, it goes back, I think, largely to what my parents taught me, which was to believe in myself and to believe that if I did my best with integrity, my best would be good enough, and that I should not be overly impressed when people had nice things to say, and I shouldn't be overly upset or depressed when people had not nice things to say. I made a choice to step into the arena. And unfortunately, in the present day, in making that choice, you set yourself up for attacks, valid and invalid. And I've had my share. But I made this choice consciously. I wanted to serve. I don't regret for a moment having served. It was an extraordinary privilege, particularly under President Obama. And I got to work on the most important and consequential issues and bring to bear, to the best of my abilities, the best recommendations and the best policy solutions. And I knew that in doing that, I was opening myself up to some degree of insanity. In recent years, I think the insanity has increased exponentially and has no relationship whatsoever to reality. But it is what it is. And my only regret was not the effect that the lows might have had on me, but I did watch it have a painful effect on my mom, who at the time was aging, and it was really the last thing she needed because it really ate at her. And to some extent, it also had a temporary, thankfully, but a significant impact for a period on my young daughter, who was at the time 8 when the whole, like for example, the whole Benghazi thing went down. She's doing great, and she recovered pretty quickly, but I think one of the things that gets lost in, you know, the rough and tumble of cable news and the Washington game is that behind every player on the front page of the newspaper are human beings and family members and friends and people who care about that person who may be one day celebrated and the next day vilified. My regret in what I experienced was that my mom and my daughter in particular had to feel that pain even more deeply than anybody else.
You say to yourself, you chose to walk into that spotlight. They came as a collateral damage for all practical purposes.
They did not sign up,
Right.
especially my daughter.
And I still see a little bit of anger. You got it over here for the people that put your daughter through that.
Yeah, I haven't forgotten who they are.
You haven't forgotten. You have a long memory, I imagine.
And I have some years left.
When a national security advisor says that, I would be afraid, be very afraid. You talked a little bit about your mother and your father's influence. I know that your brother is heavily involved in diversity and inclusion. Who were some of the other pillars in your private circle that believed in you and helped form the person that you are? Well,
Family first. My mom and dad above all. My brother, with whom I remain very, very close, who, as you mentioned, has spent the bulk of his career working on the issues that really are the topic of this conference. He's founded and he's the CEO of an organization called Management Leadership for Tomorrow, John Rice. And he is, you know, he is one of my very best friends in the world. He was the maid of honor at my wedding, just to give you a sense.
You didn't make him wear a lavender dress, though.
I did not make him wear a dress.
That's good.
But apart from my immediate family and, of course, my husband, who's been an extraordinary partner and supporter for now over 25 years, I've had people along the way who've given me encouragement. Teachers, when I was growing up, who not just said, you know, you're smart and you can do well, but said to me in 7th grade that when you graduate from high school, you should be the valedictorian. And these are white teachers in a white school telling me to aim for things that at that stage hadn't frankly occurred to me. And I just sort of filed that away under, wow, is that really possible? But it inside gave me a glimpse of what might be achievable. And every step of the way, my parents raised me and my brother to believe that there were really no limits to what we could achieve if we set our minds to it. Very different from their lives. My dad was born in 1919 in segregated South Carolina, and he served in World War II at Tuskegee in the segregated Air Force. And thank you. And that experience, his experience, really until, you know, he was a professional in the 1970s, was one of being told what he can't do. And my mom had a different story, but still, you know, the child of immigrants from Jamaica who had no education, and she and her brothers were the first in their families to go to college. And, you know, she was, like so many of you, a groundbreaker in the corporate world, serving on some 11 corporate boards back in the 70s and 80s when there were very few African-American women able to do that. And yet, you know, despite their own struggles, they taught me and John to never feel any constraint or limitation. And I really feel extraordinarily blessed that somehow we bought that and we embraced that, and we just were trained to shoot as high as we could and not feel like there was anybody saying you cannot.
Your support system seems phenomenal. Were there people who saw something in you that you didn't even see in yourself?
I guess the teachers.
Yes.
It'd be the answer to that. I always thought that I was pretty smart and I was a pretty decent athlete and I was going to be okay. But they encouraged me to think more ambitiously and to see myself as someone who was perfectly capable of being at the top of the pile, not just in the top third of the pile. And then I've been lucky, at different stages thereafter to have bosses and mentors and friends that have encouraged me, men and women, white and black. Somebody who's been extraordinarily important to me from childhood is Madeleine Albright. I got to know her when I was maybe about 4 because she and my mom served together on the board of our school. And this was long before Madeleine Albright had any role in foreign policy or national security. She was, like my mom, a mom, raising 3 girls who I went to school with. But over the years, as her career progressed and mine far behind began to progress, she was a source of encouragement and advice and inspiration, and she remains very, very dear to me to this day.
There's nothing lucky about you. It's when preparation meets opportunity.
Oh, there's luck too. Everybody has luck. Preparation, absolutely important, but I don't discount the good fortune.
And people giving you opportunity and open doors that a number of people don't see even now. I can't have you here without doing a couple of hot topics. You know that, right?
All right,
okay.
Here we go. It's a good day to do hot topics.
Yes.
Lord have mercy.
Where to start? Let's talk Russia for a minute.
Let's talk Russia.
What? Oh, I saw you turn and shift. Slowly she turned. I like it. What is the state of the U.S. and Russia's relationship?
It's bad.
Really bad.
It's bad because, I'll elaborate a little bit if that's
a little bit, thank you.
Russia under Putin, or I should say Putin on behalf of Russia, has decided that his ambition is to return to his definition of czarist greatness, which means that he's czar for life at home, and he is as much of a Bigfoot around the world as he can possibly be. And he views his success as depending on diminishing that of the United States and the rest of the Western world. He's very anti-democratic. He resents our system of government. He resents our alliance network. And he's out to diminish us and advance himself. And in that context, we've seen everything from the invasion of Ukraine and their intervention in Syria with very horrific humanitarian consequences. And also the meddling, and I'm now not going to use the word meddling anymore, the blatant interference in our 2016 election.
Is that technically possible that they actually interfered?
They definitely interfered.
Yes.
The question is, and I think this is what you mean, to what effect?
Yes.
So they definitely interfered. They are still interfering, and we are not doing nearly enough about it, not least because we have had a president who's denied it for so long. But yes, what the Russians did several things. As you know, they hacked into emails and released them with the aim of trying to disadvantage Secretary Clinton and advantage President Trump. They tried to probe our electoral systems at the state level to see where they might find weakness and openings. And while, to the best of our knowledge, they did not succeed in altering voter rolls or altering votes. They were doing their best to see where they might find openings. And the other thing they did, which they continue to do, is to influence public opinion by manipulating information, particularly on the internet, but by propagating fake news, by amplifying true news, but putting strange spins on it. So, for example, a recent example, after the Parkland massacre, Russian bots were all over the web and the internet, amplifying messages both of hostility to guns and pro-guns, just trying to manipulate and divide us as a people and to prey on our domestic political divisions to weaken us from within. That's what they are doing on a daily basis. They did that during the election. And so the question is, did it change the outcome? And the answer is quite possibly, but we have no way of knowing for sure.
And we're not moving towards...
And we won't know for sure.
Right. North Korea.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think about the president deciding to meet with the president of North Korea and announcing it on the fly? Don't you usually take a little bit of time to go over policy changes such as that?
Yeah, they didn't do it the normal way.
Okay.
Didn't do it the normal way. From all accounts, what happened yesterday in the White House was crazy.
And that day was different from another one?
No. Fair point. Fair point. But in this case, I mean, literally, just to tell the story, the South Koreans send a delegation to Washington, their national security advisor, head of their intelligence. These are the same men who had recently visited Kim Jong-un in North Korea for the first time. So that in itself was significant. They came to the White House to brief my successor, General McMaster, and other senior members of the national security team. And apparently, the president got word that they were in the building. And rather than waiting to today when he was scheduled to see him, he's like, oh, come on, bring him down in the Oval. Come on down. And he's like, so what happened? What'd you hear? And the South Korean said, well, you know, blah, blah, blah. And Kim Jong-un would really like to meet with you. Great. Let's do it. Go out there and tell the press that we're going to do it. And the guy's like, hold up. Wait a minute. I need to call home and ask my boss if he's down with that. So they called home and, you know, sent this South Korean national security advisor out in front of the White House to announce this with no Americans. It was unconventional, to say the least. Now, once you get back past all the drama and the wow factor, and by the way, the fact that he totally cut his Secretary of State off at the legs, who was on the road saying, no way we're about to have negotiations anytime soon. I feel bad. Every time Tillerson goes somewhere, something happens. And
definitely.
He's even, well, he gets undercut.
Yes.
Put it politely. Mm-hmm. Anyway, now, having said all of this about the way it went down, I do think, in all honesty, that we are far better off in diplomatic talks with the North Koreans than we are with the status quo, which is that they are unfettered in their ability to pursue their nuclear and missile programs. And we're certainly better off than somebody waking up on the wrong side of the bed and deciding to launch a preemptive strike on North Korea, thinking that it'll be just a bloody nose, but in fact it'll be potentially on the scale of World War III. So I am not against diplomacy. I think that is a tool we need to use. In fact, it's today an underutilized tool. But summits require preparation, and summits require leadership on both sides to know what the hell they're talking about. And we got 2 months, and a president who has not shown a great penchant for studying or doing his homework or knowing what he's talking about or saying on Thursday what he said on Tuesday. And therefore, it's a little bit of white knuckle time.
We also need discipline, and he's sorely lacking when it comes to discipline. What is the role, Ambassador, of the leader of the free world? You know, that you get that title. You get that title along with, you know, you're the chief executive, you are POTUS. But leader of the free world does carry a bit of responsibility.
Right. You're supposed to like be the grown-up at the table, not throw your food, and not call your little brother names. You're supposed to be the one that tells everybody to chill out and eat their spinach.
And not look up girls' skirts either. But I digress.
So, you do. So the leader of the free world is supposed to represent our values of freedom and respect for human rights and respect for the press and the rule of law and our institutions and international institutions. We're supposed to be a guarantor of what experts in my field like to call the liberal world order, meaning the institutions that we built after World War II to protect against rogue elements and to provide security and openness in trade and respect for all of the universal values that we hold dear. And we're supposed to, as leader of the free world, not only reinforce that architecture which has so long served our interests, but to try to, the best of our extent, to model those values by the nature and the caliber of our leadership. So we're challenging that proposition these days.
You hear, I mean, in all seriousness, there's often racist tinged commentary coming out of this administration. There's xenophobia. How does that impact on our relationships with our foreign neighbors, those who are supposed to be with us and those who are supposed to be adversaries?
Nobody likes being called bad names, especially our friends. And we have friends on the African continent. We have friends in the Caribbean. We have friends in Latin America. We have friends in Asia. And of course in Europe, in the Middle East. And when we give the impression that we are devaluing some because of what they look like or what they believe, we are not only alienating millions of people, we're making ourselves less secure. Because the kind of world we live in now, as you all know, whether we're talking about terrorism or proliferation of weapons or a pandemic disease, we live in, or crime cartels, we live in a world where stuff can start in one remote corner of the planet and quickly migrate as a threat to another far away part of the planet. And these are the kinds of problems that you cannot solve simply by using American military might. You need partners and allies willing to cooperate and able to cooperate effectively. And when we call, whether it's the next Ebola epidemic or the next time we face a resurgent terrorist threat like ISIL, or when Russia harasses another neighbor, the United States is the country that has to call everybody together and say, we're leading, please follow and join with us as we collectively address this threat. And that's how we've dealt with threats effectively, with strong American leadership and respected American presidential leadership. President Obama did that. He built a coalition of over 67 countries to combat ISIS. He led the effort to contain and limit the Ebola epidemic and save potentially up to 1 million lives. He led the effort to sanction Russia for its invasion of Ukraine when we couldn't do it through the Security Council of the United Nations because, of course, Russia has a veto. So, and those are just 3 examples, but there are many, many others where American leadership depends on countries being willing to join with us. And if you call somebody the N-word or its equivalent, or worse, actually, they're going to be like, you know, now you want me to help?
Right.
Or if you say to our NATO allies, we're not sure we're going to be there for you because you didn't pay 2% last year, which is, by the way, not written into any treaty agreement. And then we say, okay, NATO, but look what China just did in the South China Sea, and we need you all to be with us. They're like, really? So these actions, these words have consequences, and we cannot assume that they don't.
Long-term impact and long-term consequences is what it sounds like. You know, as I listened to you talk, I realized just what weight was on you, the weight of the world. And we are very grateful for your service.
Thank you very
That's
much.
the first thing I'd like to say.
Thank you.
Every woman in this room strives for that elusive work-life balance. I like to call it work-life integration, because how you balance, I still don't know. How in the ham sandwich did you balance the weight of the world and being a wife and a mother and a whole human being at the same time?
It's challenging. Like, I mean, it's for all of us, right? There's no easy formula. And I'm really of the view that, you know, how one individual does it is not a recipe for how the next individual does it. I'm tired of us telling each other how to, you know, act. For me, in my experience, just to talk about the 8 years of the Obama administration, the first 4.5 years, I was in New York as UN ambassador 4 or 5 days a week. My husband, who was working in Washington, and our kids who were in school in Washington, stayed in Washington. And I tried to come home on the weekend, so we had that challenge. Make it worse, my husband's job at the time, he was the executive producer of ABC's Sunday morning show This Week, which he left in 2011. But that meant that I'd come home on a Thursday or Friday, and his work week was ramping up to culminate on Sunday. So we were 2 ships passing in the night with kids at home who were like, you know, who are you people? And to make matters worse, my father first and then my mother got very, very ill. And we were, my husband and I and my brother and his wife, caring for our parents and trying to provide them with the support that they needed. So we were in that sort of sandwich situation of kids on the one hand and elderly parents on the other. And the way we managed it was, you know, one, I can't say enough how extraordinary my husband is and how much support he provided me, but also the kids and my parents. I mean, he was there for my parents when I had to be in New York and couldn't be there. My brother and I are very close, and we're a good team, and my sister-in-law and my husband are very close, and they're a good team. And then we've been really blessed to have people with our family who have been able to be supportive and helpful with child care or elder care for many, many years. So really dedicated, loving people that we trusted that were part of our family and remain part of our family even after my parents had passed. So you know, it's become a cliche, but I do believe it takes a village. And you have to be willing to call on your network, to use your terminology, to help support you personally as well as professionally. And the only other thing I'll say is that as a leader, and both the roles I was in at the UN and then as National Security Advisor, I was the boss of a staff, of a team. And I tried very hard not just to tell my team, but to model for my team that we have to fill in for each other. If your kid is sick, if your husband has a stroke, if you got to go to a parent-teacher conference, that comes first, and we will fill in behind you. We will fill that void. So you're not alone. Whether you're a man or a woman, we got your back, whether it's planned or unexpected. And I think that we were able to foster a team where people helped each other and believed that it was okay to say, I gotta go. And because I came and said, I gotta go.
Could you really say, I can't make this. I need to be with my son, or I need to be with my husband. He's in the middle of something. I gotta go.
I gotta go. And I worked, God bless him, for a boss, the President of the United States, who was totally supportive. And there were a couple of days where I walked into the Oval Office and I said, Mr. President, my mom's in the hospital. I gotta go. I can't do this meeting. My deputies have got it. And he's like, good, I get it. Go do what you got to do. And I knew that that was 100% genuine. And it wasn't just for me, it was for everybody. That was the kind of leader he is and the kind of administration he ran, and that filtered down. And I hope and believe that my colleagues, when something happened in their lives, felt genuinely that it was okay to go do what they had to do for however long it took.
Oh, how I long for no drama Obama. When the most controversial thing he ever did was wear a tan suit.
And by the way, I liked the tan suit.
So did I. I
thought it broke up the monotony.
He looked good.
He looked good.
He looked good, which is all that really matters, you know what I mean? With more African American women as heads of households, I believe strongly that pay equity is the #1 issue for working women. We talked about that yesterday. What do you see as issues that affect working women that we actually can make some headway with?
Well, I think pay equity is hugely important, and I would put that as a key pillar under a larger rubric of what women need, which in a word is respect. Just respect. Respect our intellect, respect our ideas, and don't steal them and pretend that they're yours. Respect our bodies and keep your hands to your damn selves. And respect what we're able to contribute, and that gets back to pay equity, among other things. So I'm excited to see that we are re-energizing the effort to assert our demand for respect. But we have to assert it in all of these dimensions. And pay equity is the most tangible and concrete form of that, and when you're trying to put food on the table, it's arguably the most important. But you don't want to put food on the table and then have somebody treating you like crap all day long.
No question. Speaking of questions, I would love to give you all the opportunity. We have time for...
Is it that time?
Yes, it is. We actually have time for a couple questions from the audience. If we can bring the lights up just a moment. And I'm going to ask you to ask a question, not make a statement. Bless your heart. We know how important your statements are, but we have the policy person here. We don't need to hear your policy.
Well said.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have a policy, I promise. I have a question. So thank you, Susan, for being here with all of us. Your insights are profound, and I appreciate you sharing yourself with us. So you spoke about the divisiveness in this country, which is deepening daily. So what advice, besides voting, which I'm an active voter, what advice would you give to someone who is trying to convince or educate someone on the opposing side? Someone that's falling for the Russian propaganda. My intent is to extend the olive branch to be like, okay, we've got this divide. How do we heal ourselves as a country? So what advice would you give on a personal level to do that?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me talk about the challenge at a national level and then try to bring it back to a personal level. On a national level, we're in a place where we are more suspicious of one another than we've ever been. And we're more polarized on the basis of our political views, race, religion, socioeconomic status, where we live, whether we've been to college or not, than at any time in recent memory. And it's all being exacerbated, in my opinion, by the fact that we now live in a world, unlike when we grew up, where basically there were 3 nightly news broadcasts, and there were 3 white men, and they told you what we were supposed to know, and actually with a high degree of accuracy for the most part. Now we can pick and choose the information we consume. And we can shut out, by virtue of our Facebook feed or what we, what we pull down on the internet or what cable channel we watch, those views that align with our point of view, and we can filter out those that don't. And we are no longer discussing and debating around our community tables, much less on college campuses where I fear that dissenting views or unpopular perspectives are increasingly unwelcome. We're not teaching even our college-educated kids the art of discourse across ideological lines. And we're not teaching our young kids, our civic values, including our commitment to free speech and freedom of assembly and freedom of religion. So we are ourselves exacerbating our domestic divisions. And I'm deeply, deeply worried about this. I think our democracy is at risk because of what we are doing to ourselves. And then you get the Russians coming in and playing on those divisions and exacerbating them. So I think on a personal level, we all have to be willing to listen and to learn about things that are unfamiliar or uncomfortable for ourselves. We have to push ourselves to get out of our comfort zones and absorb views that diverge from our own, and then be willing to discuss and debate them respectfully. So, if you've got, look, I've got people in my immediate family with whom I powerfully disagree. I mean, I just want to break their neck. But I love them because they're my family. And so I got into this thing with my family member, who will remain anonymous, where we decided, instead of just fighting with each other and getting on each other's nerves every day, that we were going to try to learn from each other. And so we agreed that we were going to assign each other reading that we thought the other would benefit from, or that helped them to understand how we each thought of things. And then we'd set aside time on a regular basis to discuss those readings and to have something exogenous to debate, whether it was an article or a book or, something, so that we could channel our difference of views into a debate on something concrete. And we could try to figure out, well, what do we agree about when we read this book? Where do we actually have some things in common? And it was a really good thing.
Your family is no joke. We play spades in my family. You assign policy, okay? I mean,
We screw around in my family too, but this was getting so serious, and it was really impacting our ability to get along.
Yeah.
And it was bleeding out into the larger family. We had to figure out how to deal with it, and it's not solved. Don't let me leave you with the wrong impression. But at least we found a vehicle for, channeling our differences. And I don't know if that works for everybody, but the point is you got to try, and you got to be willing to engage perspectives that differ from your own.
makes sense.
And do it in an intellectually honest way.
Do we have another question?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Star Jones and Ms. Susan Rice, it's a pleasure. It's my honor. My name is L'Oreal Jones, and through my radio personality, I go by Low with the Flow in Tampa, Florida, at a station WMNF. Again, I am pleased to be here, and I'm honored. My question for you, Ms. Susan Rice, if my research is correct, you were quoted saying that your parents taught you to never use race as an excuse or an advantage.
That is correct.
Thank you. I did a good Google search. What I would like to know, first of all, that was profound and that spoke to me. I would like to know, how has that helped you deal with adversity, having that perspective, and push just as hard to overcome it when it may have been evident that your experience was racially motivated?
Well, what they meant by never use race as an excuse or an advantage was, as I said earlier, they always said that I had to do my best and that my best would be good enough. And if somebody had a problem with me at my best, then that was not my problem, it was their problem. And that has stuck with me. I mean, like all of you, I've experienced racism and sexism and all kinds of isms. And my view is that is their problem, not my problem. I'm not going to let it get in my way of doing what I need to do, because the effect of racism or sexism is magnified if it gets in our heads and we allow it to cripple our ability to play at the top of our game. That's what my dad taught me, having come up in the segregated South. He was always told what he couldn't do, and he decided early on that he was not going to let other people's prejudice get in his way, and he struggled his whole life against that with great success ultimately. And what he taught me and my brother was, we got to just be the best we can be. And we don't want to, the other side of the coin is don't use it as an advantage, meaning don't try to get over just because you're black or just because you're a woman if you're not any good.
True that.
You got to be good. And then you'll get over on the merits, and if you don't, it'll be because somebody else has a problem, not you.
Thank you very much for your questions. Dr. Rice, let's bring it to you. Do you have a daily mantra or sort of a principle that you live by? Do you believe in that sort of thing?
I'm pretty simple. No.
Not really?
No.
Like you don't make New Year's resolutions and all of that?
I make New Year's resolutions. Like everybody else, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to exercise more, drink a little less wine.
Why?
All that stuff. Be nicer.
They always want
more
women to be
patient.
nicer. They always want professional women to be nicer.
Yeah, well, in my case, it's not an unreasonable request. I can always be a little nicer.
I think you're pretty nice.
So I got all that. And I'm spiritual in a very private way. But I don't have, I wish, maybe I should, I don't meditate. I don't do yoga. I don't do things that are supposed to help me connect with myself. What I do is exercise regularly, because I find that to be very, very important. And what I used to do when I was much younger, but I haven't done since I got waylaid on this national security track, is to write poetry. And the process of poetry writing was, I guess, a way of getting up in my own head. And now I'm writing a book. And this book, this book will be my personal story, actually going back to my parents and grandparents and my childhood and my time, up through my time in government. And it's not going to be all about policy, it's not going to be heavy, but it's going to be the story of, you know, who I am and where I came from and why I am what I am and what I'm not. And that process of writing, and I'm actually writing it myself, but more importantly, the process of going back and excavating memories and emotions and documents and things that my family history, things that I never had time to really examine in depth because I was going. That process has been itself an important spiritual journey. And it is, now that I'm out of government and I have some distance from all the day-to-day stress, it's giving me a really welcome opportunity to take care of some older business in my own mind and soul that I didn't have time before to do.
And that actually brings me perfectly to my last question with you writing this book and all the wisdom that you've gathered through your career and your personal life. Looking back, which is what you've been doing as you've been pulling together everything for the book, what would you tell your 21-year-old self?
Meaning, what would I tell myself to be differently than I was when I was 21?
Yes, based on what you now know and have experienced.
Well, I mean, I had a lot of great opportunity and experience at 21, and I was much the person that I am now then. But I've learned, among other things, the importance of being patient. I'm not a patient person. With myself or by temperament with others that are straining patience. And so I've learned over time that that's important, that you got to be patient with yourself and with others, and that the results, doesn't mean you don't drive and you don't push, but you don't overdrive and overpush people beyond their capacity to function effectively. And same for myself. So that's one thing I've learned. I've also learned, like all of you, every day, that when I was 21, I'd never been knocked down, never had to get up and dust myself off and keep going. I've now gotten some experience with that. And so I think that's part of the process, resilience, being willing and able to rebound. And that's born of a knowledge that I'm doing my best for the right reasons with integrity. And if I mess up, and I will mess up, I have messed up, or if I get accused of messing up when I didn't mess up, got to get up and keep going no matter what. So that's another lesson. And then finally, and this kind of brings it back to where we started, I've learned, and I think I always knew, but I learned with age just how important family and friends are, and how, at the end of the day, in my opinion, family and friends are, and one's own health, are far more important than any professional endeavor or challenge or stress.
Ambassador, on behalf of a grateful nation, some really cool other black women around this room and around this nation and world, we thank you for your service. And if you aren't too busy in 2020 and you need something to do,
oh, come on now.
I know a couple girls that would do real well out in the field for somebody who we could believe in.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
That was fun. Thank you. That was really
Let's hear it again for Ambassador Rice. And also for my dear friend Star Jones for a terrific, terrific interview. These past few days, feels like 4 days. These past few days, you've heard us describe the many special moments that have occurred throughout as magical. And what better place is there to create and feel the magic than here in the midst of the Magic Kingdom? So I'd like to take this time to give a special thanks to our friends at Disney, who is a returning sponsor for virtually rolling out the red carpet for each of us from the time of our arrival. We're made to feel at home, and their genuine hospitality does not end there. One of our favorite directors, a woman of power in her own right, Ava DuVernay, has a film opening this week. It's her first Disney film, and the first time a woman of color has ever been hired to direct with a budget of over $100 million. As you might imagine, she's a bit busy at the moment, and she could not join us today, but she did want to share a brief message.
Hello to all you beautiful sisters at the Black Enterprise Women in Power Summit. I am so disappointed that I can't be there with you, but I wanted to just send this little message to thank you for supporting me and supporting images that empower young black girls around the world. I've been reminded over and over again of how much sisters do to keep our community and our nation moving forward. Black women are powerful. Our stories are often miraculous. That's why black women are at the center of every one of my projects. We have incredible stories that are powerful and beautiful and universal. And at End and Wrinkle in Time, a little black girl saves the universe. It is possible to change what's happening in cinema. It's possible to change what's happening in our world. You all congregating there today really is a part of that. So I want to thank you so much. I'm proud to share my vision of this amazing story with you. And I just thank you for all that you're doing in your own lives, in your own communities, to push us and move us all forward. God bless you and have a beautiful day.
I'd like to further encourage you to support this great film by going to see it at your local theater when you return home. But just to ensure that you do, there's an envelope on each table containing a gift for each of you from Disney. It's not shoes, it's not shoes, it's not shoes. It is a Fandango code to see A Wrinkle in Time. So I'm going to ask a person at each table, or designate one person at each table, to do the honors of handing out the gift to everyone at the table. Let's thank Disney for that. Thank you. Okay. Now, folks, Disney has had an extraordinary year in film, most recently with the phenomenal, record-breaking Black Panther that has now, yes, when Wakanda, I got it. Something, yes. My daughters will work with me on this when I get back. Okay. I'm a big moviegoer, as you can see. But Black Panther has now exceeded $1 billion in sales. So let's help make A Wrinkle in Time another blockbuster for Disney, and let's have two $1 billion films. To culminate this Women of Power Summit, Disney has also planned a very special evening for all of you this evening at the Animal Kingdom Park. Now, this agenda includes live music, a special performance of Festival of the Lion King, and an exclusive opportunity to experience the newest attractions at Pandora, the world of Avatar. Seems my daughter's more excited about this than anything else. Now, we will meet at the Porte Cochere here in the Convention Center at 6:45 p.m. sharp. That's outside there. Where transportation will be provided to take you to the event. And while the event does not run until midnight, we will have buses available for return trips to the hotel starting at 10, so you can stay as long as you see fit. I would encourage you to wear comfortable, not just shoes, comfortable clothing and warm clothing, because it feels a little bit more like New York out here right now than it does anything else. But we're going to meet at what time, ladies? At the where? Exactly, okay. You did the best you could with that. Porte Cochere. Okay, 6:45 p.m. And it's going to be truly, truly a special and magnificent evening. Yes, because they said the temperatures dip after the sun sets. Now, for safety reasons, Disney will search all bags and may conduct screenings via metal detector. So please wear your summit badges that you have and carry a photo ID. Don't bring bags that you don't need. That way they don't have to be searched. It'll just make it much easier. But this is standard fare, so it's not like they're picking on us. Let's not look at it that way. It's just what has to be done, okay? Okay. Before I go on to the next portion of the program, we talked about respect, or Susan and Star did, and about you all demanding and getting the respect that you deserve. And nothing pleases me more than the staff that I have here at Black Enterprise, which is extraordinary. So I'm going to take a moment of executive privilege, or man privilege, since I'm the only one who's here. And I'd like to have them turn up the lights briefly, if you could. And I'd like everyone from Black Enterprise to please stand who's working here, who is connected to Black Enterprise. And I want to thank all of them. Now, many of them are not actually in the room here. Sherry Herbert, who runs our events, and her event team are in the back, and I would be remiss if I did not thank them. Oh, there they are. They're in the very, very back. So, Sherry, wave your hand. 70% of our employees are women. All right? That's not an accident. It just happens to be the best candidates are women. So brothers, we got to get our stuff pulled together here. It's starting to get very thin and lonely in the office. And lastly, in regards to our stuff, is that the Women of Power Summit has developed into something that's much greater than just the summit. It's about the Women of Power, and it's a brand. It's both a television show, it's the events, it's what we do in digital, what have you. And no one knows I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. The person who's been leading that, or helping us lead that, has been Caroline Clark. And Caroline is the editorial director of the Women of Power Summit. And so today, I'm going to promote her to being the Chief Brand Officer for Women of Power. And I would like to have her to come forward. Caroline, if you would come forward. Yes. Walk the runway, girl. Walk the runway. Oh, I'm a little disappointed you can't get up on that. So let's congratulate Caroline on being the Chief Brand Officer. All right, she's not going to. She wants to exit the stage more ladylike than she came on. You have to lead by example, and that's what we decided to do. It is now my pleasure to introduce our sponsor from the Bahamas. Please welcome the Senior Director of Operations for the Islands of the Bahamas, Ms. Bridget King.
Good afternoon, Women of Power. This was a great morning and a great lunch. And I want to say congratulations to Caroline. We support you and we're going to stand behind you. I want to thank Butch and the entire Black Enterprise family. They have treated us, the Bahamian team here, as family. Every time we've come to this conference, we have been treated like brothers and sisters. And we want to thank them for giving us this platform to share about a place that I am so especially proud to call my home, and that is the Bahamas. I want to take this moment right now to introduce our team, our family. I'm honored to have Ms. Sandra Carey, who is the Bahamas Consulate General. Powerful woman. Our General Manager of Global Communications, Anita Johnson Patty. And I don't know where my partner in crime is, Linville Johnson. He had the vision to come to Black Enterprise for the last 5 years. He's the reason we're here, and we'll hear from him in just a second, I guess. He's the Director of Multicultural Tourism. On behalf of the Director General, Joy Gibberlew, and the 400,000 people of the Bahamas, I bring you warm, and might I add, it's 85 degrees, clear skies, you don't have to wear a sweater, greetings, and we want to extend big hugs from your sisters who work and live in the Bahamas. Last year, you may recall, some of you, that from this very podium, we invited you, we extended a wide invitation for you to visit our islands. And we told you then that we were holding a place in the sand. Do you remember that? Okay, we're still holding that place in the sand. Some of you took us up on that invitation. Ours is a small country with an enormous presence in the Caribbean and the world. We're a place just 55 miles off the coast of South Florida, where the lights of some of those islands are seen across the Atlantic pond. Seriously, we're that close. It's closer to get to Nassau, 30 minutes, than to get here to Orlando, which is 3 hours drive. So we're that close. We're not Wakanda, but we're a string of 700 islands, so incredibly magical, amazingly beautiful, authentic, and diverse that I'm literally surprised as a Bahamian that I still have more to discover. Let's take a look.
With the Bahamas being blessed with so much natural beauty, it is only natural that we want to welcome people to come and experience firsthand our various islands.
The Bahamas for a tourist is one of the prettiest places that you will ever get to see. There's no place closer that takes you further away from it all, that takes you further back in time, that's totally different from anywhere else. Around every new corner you'll run into something you've never seen before.
The experiences are truly unique.
Most people don't know that there's more than 700 islands in the Bahamas. Many are just little keys and islands that are not even inhabited. No matter how old you are or how young you are, there's something for everyone.
This is an island nation with huge amount of diversity.
The size of the Bahamas compared to other archipelagos in the world, the Bahamas is very, very expansive. 1,000 miles from tip to tip, 700 islands.
The Bahamas is this little jewel that is just an incredible place. The people, the culture, the feel of it.
I call it a peaceful country, I call it a friendly country, and a very comfortable place to live your life.
We are very proud of our uniqueness, while at the same time, we just love to share our culture with our visitors.
We emerge as a people that have found our own way and our own identity.
The food we eat, the music that we create, the way we dance, the way we have our festivals in the street.
You can define the Bahamas through the rhythm of Africa and the melody of Europe.
As a visitor coming to the Bahamas, what you have to realize is that you're coming to a place with more than one destination within a destination. You have city, you have rural, and each island in the Bahamas has an individual vibe and feeling.
So whether it's the bustle of a city life with our mega resorts on Nassau and Paradise Island, or tranquil lodges on our family islands, where people who enjoy boating, diving, birding, ecotourism, they would find something to do. So many reasons to come and visit.
All right, thank you.
There are a lot of different destinations within the Bahamas in our archipelago. It's about 700 or 800 miles from the northwest to the southeast and about 200 miles wide.
The Bahamas is a geographical area from Abaco in the north to Inagua in the south. It's the same as the Lesser Antilles, 100,000 square miles that's just waiting to be explored.
All of these islands are beautiful, tranquil, but there's just always something unique.
700 islands, 700 different experiences.
The out islands of the Bahamas comprise 84% of the landmass of the country, and we're 100% unspoiled.
We like to say in the out islands that this is the real Bahamas.
Where the experience is not manufactured, where it's authentic, where you can experience the true culture of Bahamas. But we have to approach it in a sustainable way. What people are coming for today, we want them to see the same thing 100 years from now.
Thank you. That was my boss. I'm still awestruck by the Bahamas, in truth. You know, when I see that water, I stop. There's no water like it in the world. So from the food we eat, the music we create, the way we dance, the pulsating sounds of the goatskin drums, our many dialects, and we have many of them, our settlements and our towns, our potions and our bush teas can cure anything, our history and our culture. These experiences are not manufactured, and they're what we like to say, true Bahamian experiences. And so if you lean in just a little close, and if you listen in a little hard, you might find that our roots and our connections with you are just a few degrees of separation. So for the curious, for the sun lovers and the fun lovers, the adventurers, the romantic, the sisterhood and the brotherhood, those waiting to exhale. How many are waiting to exhale? There's more. But those who are waiting to exhale, we're still holding that place in the sand for you. Thank you very much. And now we have some prizes, and I mean we have some prizes. So Mr. Linville Johnson, Director of Multicultural Tourism.
Thank you. Thank you, Bridget. Thank you, ladies. How are you? You don't sound too happy. How are you? Hey, this is the Bahamas. We are pleased to be here. We want to again congratulate Carolyn and thank Butch and the team. The Bahamas now is part of the family, and we are pleased to be here, and we're here for a while. We're here to stay. My job really is just to give away some of the excitement that we have. If you're not there today, we want to be sure you get there sometimes in the near future. So we have two prizes. The first prize is in the $4.2 billion resort area of Bahama. Many of you have heard of it years ago. It was slow in coming. It is here. It is a great destination. And the first prize is a weekend at the Hyatt Grand Hotel. The luxury Hyatt Grand Hotel. Thank you, Bridget. And the winner is Dr. Shirley Davis. Are you here? Please come on up. Okay, well, listen. There's hope. There's one more. Again, in the same $4.2 billion resort area at the Bahama, at the Rosewood, at the Ultra Rosewood Resort. Ultra, mega, luxury, and all of the above. Rosewood Resort. We have another weekend hotel stay. And now this we know was done through the Twitter contest. I don't have a name, but we have a Twitter handle. And listen carefully. This is a biggie. It's M-A-R at Marblaze6. Is that right? Congratulations. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We hope to see you in the Bahamas with some exciting things happening very soon. God bless you. Well, I'm glad she's not excited about winning that. And the Bahamas is a terrific place. And we look forward to doing some things there in the Bahamas in the not-too-distant future. Okay, thank you, Bridget, and thank you for the honor of the Bahamas. And finally, each year Macy's signs on to take you shopping, to style you, and to put on a fashion show like no other. And it is that time. I know many of you went onto the Macy's excursion on Wednesday and returned with multiple bags of merchandise, which is a good thing. And in case you miss purchasing anything, there's another chance to see what you can add to your collections. So it is my pleasure to turn over the remainder of the program now to Macy's. Please welcome the Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion Strategies for Macy's, our friend, Ms. Christian Dorr-Page.
I have a microphone here, but maybe I should use this one. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kristen Page, and I'm the Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion Strategies for Macy's. Is everyone having a good time? It's good. I know I am. I have some of my Macy's colleagues in the house. Can you please stand up so you can be acknowledged? I really have a great team here with me this year. I have to tell you, I look forward to the Black Enterprise Women of Power Summit every single year because it's always done so well, and I can't help but leave inspired and motivated. This year is no different. Hasn't it been great? I know I asked you that already, but it's been really great this year. Let's definitely give it up again for Black Enterprise, for Butch, for Caroline, for the BE staff that have done a fantastic job. This year has truly been an amazing conference, from the impactful workshops to the dynamic speakers, like former U.S. National Security Advisor and U.S. Ambassador to the United States, Susan Rice, just now. What a powerful message she shared, especially in these challenging times. And it truly is a difficult and challenging time in this country, and for us as women, and especially as Black women. The need for this Women of Power Summit is great, and now more than ever, we need to meet, support, and motivate each other. Macy's has always been proud to be a sponsor of the Women of Power Summit for the last 11 years. You all represent the best and the brightest, and we are honored to support you because Macy's believes in diversity through all aspects of our company. As I look around this summit, the largest gathering of Black female executives in the country, I am proud that 3 Black female executives from Macy's were also recognized as one of Black Enterprise's most powerful executives in corporate America. And that Macy's was again selected by the editors of Black Enterprise as one of the top 50 companies for diversity. Our commitment comes from the top down, with our CEO, Jeff Gannett, also committing to the CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion Pledge, along with more than 100 top CEOs to do more than talk the talk with diversity, but to also walk the walk. We were pleased to host the kickoff Fashion on Our Terms shopping party on Wednesday at the Macy's Millennia store. How many of you were there for that special luncheon? Good. And fashion preview with E! News correspondent Stacey Michelle. You ladies really turned up. I mean, we saw so many Macy's bags coming through BE. We were so excited. If you didn't mark it on your calendar for next year, if you didn't make it rather, mark your calendar for next year. But for now, don't worry, because Macy's has you covered today. We've got an unbelievable fashion presentation of the best spring fashions, but also the best looks to kick up your casual gear. Or maybe you are ready to plan that fabulous Bahamas beach vacation, right? I know I am. My family is from Long Island, Bahamas, and I love to take every chance I can get to visit those beautiful islands, so I'll be there soon. At your tables, each of you has a lookbook with today's fashions. When you see those must-have looks, circle them so that you can get them back at home. Or even better, we have Macy's My Stylist standing by here today to do a search and send and to place the order and have the looks on its way to your home before you even leave this conference. So we got you today. And in fact, it'll be right out there by the porte-cochere, which I know all of you know where that is at this point. So make sure you stop by and order some great fashions, because remember, support those who support you. Now, is Star Jones still here? Okay, because she's one of our best customers. I know we'll see you over there by my stylists after the show. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Stacy Michelle from the E and get ready for these fashions to rock the BE runway. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone, to the Woman of Power Summit, Macy's Fashion on Your Own Terms fashion show. Let's give it up. This has been an amazing week for you guys. I'm your host, Stacy Michelle, wardrobe stylist and fashion insider. I work with E! News, Fox, CBS, and several brands working events from Super Bowl to Fashion Week. So I am super excited to be here with Macy's to host the Woman of Power fashion show. They got Beyonce rolling for me up here. Hey. So this is especially for you guys, right? We're curating a fashion show that's going to bring you all kinds of spring must-have trends. So who's ready for spring? Right? I thought when I came to Florida I would get some sunshine, but clearly it's like 30 degrees outside. Oh my gosh, that swimsuit is staying in my suitcase. And I know some of you guys have turned this trip into a mini vacation yourselves, right? Business with pleasure is always good. And so we're featuring Resort for our first collection that we're getting ready to show you guys. What you wear represents yourself to the world, especially in today. Human contact is so quick. So fashion is instant language. I'll repeat that. Fashion is instant language. So what language do you want to speak when you're headed to the Bahamas looking cute? Or headed to New Orleans with your girlfriends? Or the beach with Bae, right? You want to be cute. So Macy's has pulled some looks together to make sure that you are represented right and fashionable for the season. You guys ready for some style? Let me hear you in the back. Are you ready for some style? All right, here we go. This dress is from Macy's. Let's give it up for these ladies. Fantastic. I feel like I need to take a few notes. So we are super excited to present even more fashion to you guys this afternoon. How many of you are on social media? Yes, that should be everybody right now. If not, ask a friend, okay? Ask a friend. So today we're using the hashtags Macy's Culture and hashtag BE, Black Enterprise, WPS 2018. I've seen some of you have been using that already. So whenever you're taking a picture, taking a photo, use that photo, post it to social media so people can stay connected with what's going on, all right? Yeah? Can you hear me in the back? Okay, good. Just making sure. Also, use that picture to take to the My Stylist. So I know some of you in the back probably can't figure out which one is in your lookbook. Try to take a picture if you can. Take that to the My Stylist and they'll know what you're talking about rather than saying, you know that pink dress? They won't know what you're talking about, right? So make sure you're taking a picture or bring that lookbook so that they can see exactly what you are interested in. And you get free shipping, so don't worry about having to shove in extra stuff into your carry-on. You'll be all right. So I do see a few people wearing red. Did you wear your red today? Yes. I am a little partial to red because I'm a part of a wonderful organization. Ooh. Any Saras in the building? Yes. Any AKAs? All right, I represent. How about Zeta? Oh, we got, okay, hey. Represent Sigma Gamma Rho? Okay, hey. Who is just a part of Me, Phi Me? You're fabulous as you are. Yes. Well, you all are fabulous in red, looking great, fantastic. And we are excited to show you again more fashion here at Macy's. Our second scene is called Utility. So who likes to wear camo? Okay, a few. How about dark denim jeans? You got that pair of dark denim that's just your staple? You probably have 100 pair of jeans in your closet, but you wear one, right? We all have that one pair. Well, utility is the next scene, and it's all about the army green camo, the beige color, neutrals, utilitarian jackets, and of course, dark denim. So our stylists have curated a collection of those styles and more for you guys to see. So we are ready to showcase another segment for you. Are you ready? Let me hear you say yeah. All right. Here we go, utility. I think I need at least one of each of those in the back. My stylist, can you hear me? Can you put size small in the back, please? Thanks. So many cute items. You guys like what you saw? Yes. So we do have a few special giveaways. Who was with me on Wednesday? A few of you guys? We had a good time, didn't we? Yeah. So we have some giveaways to give. $100 gift card. So if you didn't do enough shopping on Wednesday or throughout the week, we're giving you a $100 gift card to do that yet again. So I want to call up Kristen from earlier to join me on stage. Let's give her a round of applause. And our fabulous Tamara here. She helped produce this event. All right, so these entries were entries from Wednesday, so we're going to call a name. If you're here, great. If you're not, we're going to keep going. All right?
It's Sean Pierre Greg Pear.
Sean Pierre Greg Pear. Bonjour. Si. No? Okay. Raise your hand because we can't really see too good in the back, but you know. All right, next.
Then it's Francisca Brown. Oh my goodness.
And if you have the same name, you could probably walk right up here too. All right.
Well, surely we're going to get somebody here. Okay, so Lisa Carlson.
Yes. Whoa, all right now. Blessings. Yes. Come on down. She'll give you her gift card. I think she's crying, y'all. I think she's crying. Congratulations. Congratulations.
And I think we're going to give one more away. Okay, so I hope she's here. Carmel Millard. Is she here?
We're giving another $100 gift card. It's not as great as a trip to the Bahamas, but it'll get you an outfit for it.
How about Keisha Cannell? No.
All right. Oh. Are you in the back? Come forward if you're making noise. All right. Congratulations. Fantastic. So you can still, are you liking the fashion you're seeing?
I am. I'm loving it. And I hope the people who just got the gift card will come by and stop by my stylist and pick up a fabulous outfit.
Yes, and they get free shipping, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Free shipping. I like it. All right, so let's give her another round of applause. Making things happen at Macy's. I love it. Our next segment up is pink. Pink. Who likes to wear pink? Y'all like, yeah, every weekends. Yes, so this next segment is pink. And when we think about pink, normally we think of very feminine and sweet. But our stylists today have put together looks that are very strong and powerful and dominant. So you can wear that pink shirt or those pink bottoms to work and feel powerful, right? We're some powerful women in here. Give it up for yourselves. We're some powerful women in here. Yes. So different shades of pink, from the electric neon to the blush and pastel colors. So we have a lot to show you here. All right, so let's give it up for the next segment, Think Pink. They cut me off too early. They cut me off too early. Do you guys like that? Pink? Yeah, yeah. I like the energy. I like when you guys, you're clapping. The only time I heard you guys get real loud was when that man came out here. Okay? So, super excited. We have another great segment for you guys. I know some of you were talking about how you love denim. Well, this segment is all about denim. Denim, denim, denim is what they called it. So when it comes to denim, there's more things to do than just rock a t-shirt. You can wear a jacket, a blazer, a blouse, or anything in between with some heels to flats. So our girls are putting together some awesome looks for you guys. Do you like flares? Who are flare girls? A couple flare girls? Oh, flare girl in the back. All right. Who's our skinny jeans? You can make some noise. Skinny jeans. Okay. How about boot cut? Boot cut? I like it. I like it. I think I'm more of a, I think I like skinny jeans. Skinny jeans or wide leg, actually. I love a good wide leg pant. It's great with a blouse for all heights and sizes. So, our models are ready to rock it out again for you guys. Here is denim, denim, denim. And the show, all of the styling that you've seen today was curated by both Dee and Erica of Hale's Style. Come on out, ladies. Let's give them a major round of applause. They've been working very hard all week to bring this passion to you guys today. So where can people find you guys if they need some style advice, some style tips, anything?
You may find us on Instagram at Hailstyle Pros. That's spelled HAILSTYLEPROS.
All right, you've got it. And your favorite look from this show so far?
My favorite look was the military scene, the utility scene by far. It was the most fun to curate, and we got very editorial with it, and we had a lot of fun doing it.
Yes, did you guys like what you saw? Yes, yes. Well, we wanted to give a special thanks to Ankara Miami for selecting all the models and putting this production together. Again, Hale Style for curating all these looks. Macy's, Black Enterprise, all of you guys for being here and showing such great energy. I'm Stacey Michelle, your host for this evening, and stay connected. Let's take some pictures, let's chat, let's get to know each other before you head back home. Hopefully it's not snowing, and we'll talk soon. Thank you guys.